Good evening. My name is Thomas Lopez-Pierre, and I am the president and CEO of the Black Real Estate Forum and the fund manager for BREF, Fund Number 1 LLC. We are a social impact private equity real estate fund that raises capital exclusively from Black accredited investors and deploys that capital exclusively with Black real estate entrepreneurs to build wealth and create jobs in the Black community. This evening, we are hosting a panel discussion with four Black doctors. One will be joining us shortly to discuss their real estate, their personal real estate, their personal real investing philosophy, and their investments in real estate and other assets. And we have a distinguished panel of four financial planners. We have a estate lawyer, we have a financial planner, we have a insurance broker, and we have soon to join us as a tax accountant he'll be joining us shortly. Tobias, you're late. All right, let's begin. First, let me give Lillian shout out. Lillian, how do you pronounce your last name? Or Lillie?
Nkenchor. Nkenchor, like chores around the house.
Nkenchors, yeah.
Yes,
Nkenchors.
Yes.
First, I want to thank you for joining us. Lillie is a mother. How old is your little one?
He is 6 months today.
6 months today. Is he right there on your lap?
He is.
Very good. Very good.
Multitasking at his finest.
You know, Black women have been doing this since day one, and your husband's a very lucky man.
He is. Thank you so much. I'll tell him.
Please, please. And Lily's one of our professionals. She's a state attorney, so we're going to be bringing her on shortly. But let's begin with our doctors. Robin from DC, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I am Robin Newton Jenkins, as you can see on my name there. I'm a physician, and I've been a physician for quite some time. My background is in internal medicine, that's adult medicine, and when I was practicing, which I'm no longer, I'll explain in a second, I liked my patients very sick, and so I was known as what is known as a hospitalist, and I took care of patients when they were in the hospital mostly. And I'm also a teacher of brand new doctors to get them trained and up to snuff in the specialty of internal medicine. So I'm here tonight because of this investment group, and I'll tell you that I am very late to the investment party. Thomas asked me at one time what was my investment philosophy, and I would say that in the beginning I had none. I spent most of my time being a very busy new doctor and caring for patients, and I loved mostly caring for those who didn't have the ability to pay, and really did not think about money. As long as I could afford my food and a roof over my head, that was all that was important to me. And I'll tell you that I spent probably far too many years doing that. Finally, it started to occur to me that at some time I might not be able to break in all this money. And besides, I wanted my family to be comfortable. I too am married. My husband is not a professional. And so he's a very lucky man because his wife does the work, and he was the one who did most of the carting around of the kid who is now grown. I finally did start investing, but mostly in, because I'm an employed physician and have always liked being that, investing in the vehicles that were afforded to me by my organization. And it wasn't until later in life that I started to look elsewhere. I happened to see the, not exactly advertisement, but sort of the discussion about the forum here online. I guess I saw it on LinkedIn, and it kind of intrigued me because it was the first time I'd seen anything about Black people trying to do something for Black people. And so after watching it for several months, I finally touched base, I think through email with Thomas, and it started up a discussion. The whole idea just resonated with me. And even though in the very, very beginning, I realized this was quite a risk, I was willing to take that risk because if we can't do things together to bring ourselves forward, to make money together, to support one another. It's clear, at least to me, it's clear that no one else will. And so this farm has resonated with me. And so I finally made the commitment to invest my first sum of money. I'm soon going to be investing a second set of money because we've continued to do well. So maybe not as well as one would have hoped, as quickly as one has hoped, but I've watched us make investments, and those investments turn into fruition and dollars put back in and then reinvested. We have seen a lot of Black people able to build where they might not have otherwise been able to build, and finally to put people to work. And so that's all I'm going to say as an opening, but that's my story.
Very good, very good. Before Willie starts, I just want to say for some of our listeners, when you invest in real estate, particularly private equity funds, I saw a great graphic that Blackstone had. The first 3 years of a Blackstone, which Blackstone is $1 trillion private equity fund, the first 3 years, they lose money every year because they're spending money on expenses, marketing, advertising, and legal and accounting and regulatory matters. And it's only when the money begins to work. So we're in our 3rd year, and I'm very proud that I predict that by the end of the year we're going to be profitable, up 15%, because of the assets that begin to appreciate and generate returns. And the returns that we have generated over the last 3 years, we've reinvested them into additional projects. So now we're beginning to see the fruit of our labor, and I'm really excited about next year. And which is why next year, anybody that invests is going to have to pay a premium, probably a $1,000 premium, just to be in the fund. That money will be used to help recapture expense money that the other investors paid for the founding of the fund. And so it's a little bit like, I don't want to have people, it's unfair to have people jump into the fund after it's net positive when you've had investors ride the roller coaster for 3 years at a net negative. So that's something we'll talk about at a later date. Anyway, Willie, your turn.
Thank you, Thomas. My name is Dr. Willie Parker, and all I have to say is what Dr. Robin said. Thanks for your attention. But no, on a serious tip, I am trained in obstetrics and gynecology. This is for the last 34 years. And for the last 20 years, I've worked as an abortion provider. And I think it's important in this moment in time, politically, with the assault on reproductive rights, that I be explicit about that commitment, because I understand that if women don't control their economic lives and their reproductive lives, they don't control much else about themselves. So I, again, spent the first half of my career doing full scope obstetrics and gynecology. I'm trained also in public health and preventive medicine. And I too am retired from the grind, but I still travel to provide abortion care because I live in Texas, where it's crazy. I go to places where the need is. And that's born of a sense of commitment and caring for the least of these. Jesus said, if you do it for the least of these, you've done it to me. And the people who took care of me growing up in Alabama were women. I sat at the tails of women who nurtured and cared for me, combed my nappy hair, wiped my snotty nose as a bad asthmatic child. So it's my way of giving back. I, like Robin, found out about the forum on social media or on LinkedIn. And then I was drawn to the fund similarly for the same reason as Robin. Dr. King used to say that personal wealth is a function of the commonwealth. And so if we don't, if we can't take care of each other collectively, we'll, as Benedict Arnold said, we'll either stand together or we'll hang separately. So part of my interest in the forum is I've had the patience, the investor patience, kind of like I keep saying, like Robin said, because everything she said is she just stole my thunder. It's kind of like Jay-Z going before Kanye. Kanye is supposed to open for Jay-Z, not the other way around. So everybody's no longer interested in what I have to say, because all I can say is what Robin said. But I think what it shows is that, that sense of having a sense of patience with the turnaround on the capital is for me, the interest in growing my resources and my finances is almost secondary to the collective effort. So I decided, and I told Thomas, although I'm not giving him permission to lose money, that because of the spirit and the nature of what we're trying to do in terms of creating an a legitimate economy to benefit people of color in our community. Um, um, I, I have investments with people who don't have the same goals. And if I'm willing to lose money with folks because I understand the risk benefit ratio, I'm even more so willing to lose this capital in the pursuit of this worthy goal. So, but if I thought I was going to lose money, I wouldn't have signed up. So I'm just grateful to be a part of the effort, that there was an effort so that I could live my values financially, to put the money to work, to benefit myself. Doing good and doing well aren't mutually exclusive. And so the Black Real Estate Fund is a vehicle for me to benefit myself personally, but also to see the benefit of, 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 of working collectively for the Commonwealth. And that's valuable to me as well. So I'll stop there. Again, what Robin said.
Thank you, Will. Thank you, Will. It is my personal philosophy that it is not wise to disagree with your investors. So I think I've only disagreed very rarely with them, and I will tell you that I don't really care what Will has to say. There's no way in God's name I'm losing his money or the rest of your money. And that's why we've been doing so well, because I've managed it very conservatively. Our expenses have been managed very conservatively, and I will continue to do so. With that, Lisa, you are up to bat next.
Right. Good evening, everyone.
Oh, wait. Let me just say something. I want to apologize to all the doctors. You guys put in years to go to medical school. I should be introducing you as Dr. Lisa Benton, MD. I apologize for being so formal with all of you.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Well, all right. I'm Dr. Lisa Benton, and the way I came to the fund was actually through social media. I had received an email, and I'm a person who just believes in timing. How if you are going in the right direction, doing the right thing, things hopefully will align for you. And what had happened was, at the time, I had received several of the emails about the fund. uh, my mom had passed, and we've been dealing with her estate for several years. My mom actually has two houses, so my mom had equity. She was a retired educator, and so we were planning to sell one of the houses and then hopefully fix the other house up to rent it out as an Airbnb or something like that, or as a rental property. And what was happening was, as we were cleaning out the house, we would be there working, and we would get all these people coming through the neighborhood. Well, I'll give you cash for the house. I'll give you cash for this house. And then they would give us these really, really low ball, ridiculous offers. You would go on Zillow, Trulia, any of those sites, and it was an insult. And so at the time I said, well, if these people are willing to give us this much cash, why don't we talk to somebody really about what we can do in terms of really getting the most equity out of this house that we can. And so that's how I came in contact with Tomas. And then he just took an inordinate amount of time talking to me and my siblings and walking us through the decision-making process and what we should be looking at. And so we just appreciated how considerate, how thoughtful, how much experience he had. And he was just sharing this wealth of information all for free. He didn't know us. And we just really appreciated the genuineness of this, because my sister had actually talked to a friend who was a realtor, and this friend who was somebody we grew up with, but was, I mean, everybody's trying to get paid, but she didn't have that same kind of breadth of contacts and just the experience to be able to speak to what you would do with a property that Tomas did. And then through that, we learned more about the fund and the work they were doing. And so that's how myself and my brother decided to come on board. So a little bit more about me. I'm actually, I was a retired medical director. I had been working for a large health plan for a decade. And before that, I had worked in public health. And I was retired until a few months ago. And so I'm semi-retired because now I'm an interim chief medical officer for a Medicaid managed care organization in Ohio. And then my other background in terms of medicine, I'm a general and trauma surgeon by training. So yeah, I was ready to be retired. And then my investment philosophy actually came. I was fortunate enough that my parents, since they were both educators, they just taught us the importance of saving and importance of putting money away. It wasn't after those hard life lessons of when you first get your credit card, they have first got their credit card and you went down that, oh, it's free money. So you learn those lessons the hard way. But one of the things I just remember most was my dad, when I would come home from residency, come home from medical school, he would always be watching the nightly business news. And he would make me sit down and watch it with him. And I would be like, why do I need to watch this? You know, I'm going to be a doctor. There's like doctors get paid. Doctors get paid well. We don't have to worry about these things. But in the course of just sitting there with him, I learned some of those questions to ask. It sparked my curiosity, had me continue to learn more about my investments and how to make my money try to work for me. And in an instance of having a diversified portfolio for retirement, it was as we already heard, we're putting our money with other folks who are more than happy to lose and manage our portfolio, but not give us the information, the benefit of the doubt, and just think we're going to accept that. And I think if we're not doing something to help each other as African Americans, then why we should be doing something there too. So I think I'll stop there with that.
Very good, very good. Before we get to Natasha, I wanted to say that, you know, I'm a father of 3 children. And I have to say, as a father, you know, as a parent, your parents must be really disappointed in you and your siblings. I mean, I think you became a doctor, your brother became a lawyer, and your other sister has an MBA in finance. I mean, you could have done better. I just, you know, but anyway, we'll leave that alone. We'll leave that alone.
Well, I am working on my MBA too, so yeah. But you taught me that for Black women, we look at our equity as education when we should be looking at our equity as real equity. So thank you.
Yes. No, education is nice and it's helpful, but at the end of the day, it's, you know, can you pay the mortgage? And wealth there's a difference. You know, Black folks have used their wealth has been their home and their education, and white folks, their wealth has been assets. I know some of the most stupidest people who are some of the most wealthiest, and you know, life is about balance, and so that's why we have some strong professionals tonight that we're going to have a conversation. And the thinking is, after we finish up with Natasha, I'm going to have the professionals jump in so that they and in our audience, if there's anybody on this Zoom that has a question, put it in the chat, and Marcus will read the question to me. Okay, so Natasha, you're up.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Natasha Kyte, and
wait, I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt. Everybody, this is Natasha, Dr. Natasha Kyte, MD. My apologies.
okay, thanks. Good evening. Thank you, Thomas. I resonate with everything that's been said. I am so glad to be here. I am probably one of on the earlier end in my career than most of you guys. I am about 8 years post-residency, working in internal medicine. I started out in primary care, and I chose early on to change the course of my career, and I've ventured into urgent care. Actually, 2 weeks prior to the closing of the pandemic and shutdown, I went into the front line. And so I've been in urgent care for the past 4.5 years. And it's been good for me. I mean, it's allowed me to have a little bit more balance in my life. And during this time, I've thought about what it means to start planning ahead for my future. And in medicine, you work hard and you want to know that you can someday enjoy the fruits of your labor. And so I started to look at different avenues for trying to achieve what I call in medicine, there's this term called FIRE, and they label it as financially independent, retire early. And so for me, that meant to start working and looking at other ways to make money and make my money work for me so that I'm not only working for my money. And so I started looking at different real estate ventures. I've done a few, not that many, I'm still learning. And then in LinkedIn, I came across Thomas. And what I liked about his opportunity was that it was an opportunity not only to make money, but also to help the community. And like I said, I'm resonating with everything that's been said before. So I could say like Robin said, I could say like Willie said, and I could also say like Lisa said, because I agree and identify with all of it. And so when I saw that it's an opportunity to make 15% at least of your money and also help your community, I was like, okay, this is what the other opportunities doing, but they're not helping my community. And so I said, I will jump into this. And I was excited about that. And I'm still excited about that. And so the term for me, generational wealth, has been something that I've just been hearing about and I've just been pursuing, and I think it's become more common and more of us as people of color have become aware of it. And so I'm trying to pursue that so I could work on accomplishing my goals in life of achieving that FIRE. And let's see, what else can I say? But what everyone said, I agree with it all.
Very good, very good. Thank you. Before we get to the professionals, Marcus, did Tobai or Janet snap in?
No.
Okay. So before we get to the professionals, I want to tell you, I don't know if you guys know
Janet's
this.
here.
She is?
Came in.
I just got here.
There she goes.
I just came in.
Hey. How you doing, girlfriend?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I love the hair.
Thank you. It's hot and humid in New Orleans, so you have to do a little something different.
I understand. I understand. Everybody, I don't know if you followed, I was having people talk for 2 minutes about their medical history and their investment philosophy, and I guess how they came about to join the fund. So go ahead, Janet, you got the floor.
Oh, so I get to tell a little bit about me. My name is Janet Southerland. Hello, everybody. I am currently in New Orleans, Louisiana. I am an administrator at LSU Health Sciences Center in New Orleans. And I have been in academic administration probably for the last 35 years. I am a dentist by training. I also am a researcher. And so I have a Ph.D. in oral biology and a master's in public health. And so I think my investment philosophy has always been, if I can't afford it, don't do it. So I will look at opportunities. This was an opportunity. Also, my husband is part of this, and he is a physician by training, but he's also an administrator at the University of Texas Medical Branch. And his name is Charles Mouton. That is kind of the philosophy we've used. We don't look for quick turnarounds, which is why the philosophy is if you can't afford it, don't do it. If you need your money to work for you right then, I think you need to look at various different types of investments that will yield what you're looking for. And so our philosophy has always been to have a lot of different types in our portfolio. And this is one of them, where it is investing one in real estate. But the thing that attracted me the most was it was focused on Black people and Black wealth. So that is me in a nutshell, Thomas.
Very good.
Like for me to say.
No, you did an excellent job. And for those that are looking for more information on the fund, please visit blackrealestateforum.com, blackrealestateforum.com. Two things. One is Janet was our second investor, and her husband was our third investor. So they were here from the beginning, and it's a husband and wife team. And as a matter of fact, they're the only husband and wife team that we have. So we're gonna have to improve upon that. I want to tell you guys a brief story about doctors and the power of doctors in building community wealth. Many of you have traveled, and I'm sure you guys have stayed at Holiday Inns and 7-Elevens, and you pulled into a gas station to get gas. And one of the demographic groups in America that dominate the motel industry is our friends from the Indian community. The Indian community, particularly the Patels, there's a region of India where the Patels come from. And one person came in the 1960s and bought a motel, and then it never stopped. And they moved on from motels to gas stations to 7-Elevens. And the reason I bring this up, two reasons. One is to talk about how one group has dominated an economic opportunity for their people, as they should. But the other is to say where they got the investment capital from. Indian doctors provided the investment capital for many of them when they started. And because back then it was those professionals that had the income. And so the Indian doctors partnered with the Indian entrepreneurs, and they have created hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of wealth for their community. And so I'm seeking to copy their business model and build the wealth for our entrepreneurs and for our community. The way we make money is we, for instance, will invest $100,000 with an entrepreneur. That entrepreneur has 1 year to return the $100,000 and $50,000 in investment income. We generate a 50% return on the capital we invest. Now, how do we ensure that we're going to get that return? We ensure that we're going to get that return because they have to provide a secondary property as collateral. And if they fail to meet their obligations, we will just take the property as collateral and liquidate it, and all is good, or we'll develop it ourselves. We've invested in 6 opportunities, and we've only had to take 1 property, and we're very happy with that property. It's in the Bronx. The city of New York is going to be, it's in Bronx, New York. The city of New York is going to be rezoning basically most of the city of New York. So the value of that property is skyrocketing. So our investors are going to be very happy with that opportunity. And then our existing entrepreneurs, they have renewed their contract with us. So all of our entrepreneurs, except for the most recent one in New Jersey, have renewed their contract. So we're going to be making a second $50,000 investment payment off our $100,000 with them. We invest up to $250,000 with our entrepreneurs. And we give our investors a minimum of 15% return or 50% of the profits, whichever is greater. So, and our goal is to make it annualized so that every year they're with us, our goal is to give them 15% or 50% of the profits for every year, so that if you can imagine over a 5-year, 10-year period, that's going to be an excellent return. And, you know, my lawyer would advise me past performance. So let me say this, past performance is no guarantee of future performance, and all investments are made through a prospectus. If you're interested in getting one of our investment documents, please email us at info@blackrealestateforum.com, info@blackrealestateforum, and we'll get you one of our investment documents so that we can have a conversation. Now, let's get to the professionals. Let me introduce them first. We're going to go with ladies first. Lillie, please take 2 minutes to just say hello.
Wonderful. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lillie Nkenchor. This is my co-counsel, Hero. I'm calling in from New York City. I am an estate and business planning attorney and have been doing this work for approximately, I think August actually will be 16 years. And so my goal is really to help persons in 3 areas: estate planning, meaning someone is alive and they say, listen, I have these people I care about, I have these assets I care about, and I want to put a plan around it. Can you help me do that so that I can leave some form of a legacy? I always tell people you cannot control your legacy, but you can influence your legacy. And so my job is to create the proper documentation to do that. And then we have estate administration. Someone has passed away and now it's time to go through that court process. Some of you undoubtedly have experienced that, and some have had good experiences and some have had not so good experiences. And then business planning. The good chunk of our clients are coming to us with business concerns. The business is the largest part of their estate. They own bakeries, they own medical practices, they own a real estate portfolio, they own construction companies. And I'm not only going to draft your will or your trust and ignore your business. So let's talk about your business, and we'll do everything from registering it to all the way to, okay, now who inherits this business when you're no longer here, and what are the tax consequences? And my big mantra is estate planning is for everyone. We have really been miseducated on estate planning in a way that has made us believe that it's only for the wealthy people over there. And I tell people, don't be concerned about the value of your assets. All that matters is you have people you care about and assets you care about. If you fall in that category, then estate planning is for you. There's different levels of planning, of course. The planning I would do for someone who's a multimillionaire would be different from someone who is not, but both families should get planning and deserve planning. So don't let anyone ever talk you out of planning and saying that you don't need it. You need some form of planning. And so I'm happy to be on this call and to service our clients in New York, New Jersey, DC, Maryland, and Georgia. Thomas, thank you for inviting me.
Very good, very good. Marcus, could you do me a favor? Could you pull up the LinkedIn profiles for Lillian, Mark, and Dennis and put it in the chat? And then at some point, I want to put it, I want to go live to LinkedIn on those profiles, so it'll be recorded. So when our YouTube viewers see it, they'll be able to refer to it. And also when we put the verbiage in the YouTube, we're going to put everybody's link also so that people can find you. Next, we're going to go with Dennis, because we're going to do Mark's. Mark has a clip. Mark is just line up Mark's video document. Let's go with Dennis. Dennis, go 2 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. Pleasure to meet you all. Thomas, thank you for the invitation. I'm Dennis Greene, and I am a financial advisor currently now with Edward Jones Financial Services. I'm in Virginia. I'm in the Hampton Roads area, but I service clients nationally. I've got clients from coast to coast, and I've been licensed since 1992. My background, when you see my LinkedIn, is I spent 30 years in the Air Force and 10 years as a federal civil servant. And the way I met Thomas was, of course, through LinkedIn, like everyone else pretty much here. But I was working as a federal investigator with housing and urban development with the HUD background. And so when I saw what Thomas was doing, and I think I was one of the first when Thomas was getting this thing going to have a good long conversation with him, was very interested for the same reasons that all of the rest of you have already mentioned, African-American wealth, the fact that I had, although I was active duty Air Force, I was also licensed and still working with clients for all those decades. And with the HUD background, I was really, really interested in seeing this being a success. So I can say that from my experience working with Thomas, first of all, I just want to thank you, and I want to expound on the credibility that Thomas has. I know he's a lot of times self-deprecating, but he's one of the most honest people. Being in the money business for all the decades that I've been in the money business, I'm a hard sell, and he sold me, and I trust him with my money, and you should too. With that said, I won't go into all of the other things that we do, but I do specialize in wealth management, retirement planning. I do work with businesses. I help set up 401ks, and I have some outside private equity experience as well. So thank you for the opportunity to be here with you tonight, and I look forward to answering any questions that you may have.
Very good, very good. Before we get to Mark, I want to talk about Mark for a second. Mark, I'm going to pick on you. So
You always do.
Yeah, it's what I do. So before we created the fund in New York, we held a number of panel discussions. I worked very hard to be the dumbest guy in the room. Like I put a lot of time and energy to make sure that I'm in the room with some of the most smartest people. And so, Lisa, when I was advising your family on those matters, it's because I had heard it from other people. I had over the years seen that it made sense. So it wasn't anything that I had. I don't have any personal brilliance on my part. I just saw what worked and I shared it with you. The reason I bring up Mark is a number of years ago, maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, before the fund was even an idea, I had the idea of bringing together Black professionals in New York to have a conversation about what we could do to economically empower our community. And the reality is that it costs money to do these things. And I went to a number of people, and Mark immediately was like, I'll sponsor the event. What do you need me to, what's the check you need me to write? And he's paid for all our forms. He's wrote that check. And he's been, yes, he's benefited in the sense that he's gotten clients, but I find it sometimes difficult to encourage our people to get behind an idea that hasn't been tested. And so to have Mark on his panel and then see all these doctors here, this is really he believed in what I was doing, and he supported it and he let it grow. And he provided the financial support. So, the investors provided the capital, but there was a structure that first needed to source out the ideas. I just wanted to publicly recognize you for that, Mark. I know that I tease you from time to time, so I just wanted to say that. Marcus, could you put up Mark's page? And then, Marcus, you can have 3 minutes.
Yes. So thank you. Good afternoon, folks. I want to start out by saying, first, I've been in this industry for 36 years. I've been with 2 companies, and I actually wanted to show the other piece. Marcus showed the other piece. The other piece, committed to medical professionals. But I've known. Marcus, you ready? Okay. You forgot.
Yeah,
okay.
I see there. I'll get it.
All right. So I've worked with Lillie. Lillie and I were colleagues years ago, and I'm glad to know that I introduced her to Thomas. But
wait. Let me interrupt. you started working with Lillie right after she got out of high school, because Lillie is a very young woman.
Yeah, okay.
I'll take that. Thank you, Thomas.
Right there. Okay. So here's the situation. In the 36 years I have worked with medical professionals for the last 20 years. My wife is a doctor. I have probably about 200 doctors scattered around the country. And not that I don't work with dentists and other professionals, but I do a great deal of work with medical professionals. When someone asks me what I do, you can drop that down for a second because I want to look at my folks. When someone asks me what I do, I typically tell them I'm a chief risk officer. And people will say, well, what is that? Well, my primary goal is to manage risk. And many of you may think of managing risk as something esoteric. Some of you may break it down simply as life insurance, but risk management is a part of the process. While you're working, you're accumulating assets. When you go into retirement, you go into distribution. And as you age, you think about your legacy. And that's when we start looking at managing risk in terms of your investments, managing risk in terms of your exposures to lawsuits and other areas. And so one of the areas I worked in very early with many doctors is dealing with their income protection, in putting in place disability, and then dealing with the other insurance risks, such as you accumulate assets, you want to protect it due to healthcare risk. You might want to look at long-term care. But fundamentally, one of the areas that I do extensively with business owners is how to utilize life insurance in the place of business structures. And that may come in the form of key man. That may come in the form of using assets in a life insurance as collateral to go out and use to go get more money from the banks. So many times, professionals, whether they're real estate professionals or other professionals.
Mark, let me interrupt you for a minute. Could you explain what key man insurance is?
So key man insurance oftentimes is required by the banks. Oftentimes when you're expanding in your enterprise, business, real estate, whatever, and you go out to a bank because you need more capital and you want to borrow $5 million for a project, the bank may lend you that money, but they may ask you to acquire insurance on your life because you're key to this enterprise. You're key to this project, because the bank doesn't really want to own your enterprise. They want to get paid. So that key person, that key man insurance, will facilitate them lending you money in the event something goes awry while you have this project going on. They can get paid what is owed to them in whatever loan structure they set up. But key man is just one of the aspects we deal with. There is areas of funding insurance for the purpose of simply creating a separate asset. Here's an example. You've got 10 properties. You want to buy another property, but you don't want to take assets from your 10 properties. You want to find another asset that you can collateralize to go out and get more money from the banks. So I will go further on at a later date, but my role here is helping the professionals, helping the physicians, helping the individuals that want to expand outside of their normal areas, and using some of the tools that are being used by our Jewish brothers to further grow their assets. And in the end of the road, ultimately, Marcus showed the other piece. Ultimately, we want to create a dynasty. That legacy piece we talked about is creating a dynasty. It's simply put, dynasty trust. Lillie can talk about it further. It's done with using an attorney, but you can create multi-generational wealth using the dynasty trust. So that's just a handful of some of the things that we do. There's a team behind me. It's not just me. We bring to the table attorneys, accountants, professionals as a part of our advanced planning group. And hopefully some of the professionals here will take advantage of some of the attributes we offer here. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mark. We're going to lead with Lillian, but before Lillian starts, for those watching and for I'm sure our investors know, I have Keyman insurance. Well, the fund has Keyman insurance on me. God forbid if I got hit by a truck, the equity that has been raised, I think I have enough Keyman insurance for double the equity that we have in the fund. And I will be in a year increasing the Keyman insurance on me. And that payout is to be used to ensure that the investors do not lose any money, that money is to guarantee that for those members that want to leave, they can buy them out. And those that want to stay under the new leadership, which would be my son and my ex-wife, they would manage the fund. That money would enable them to be able to, if need be, hire an additional staff person. So Keyman Insurance is my way of saying to the investors, I take risk management very seriously, and I'm here to protect your money when I'm alive and when I'm dead. So I don't want you coming to my funeral talking about that SOB. He left and he didn't finish his job with my money. So I want you to know that I run this fund with my investors' needs first. And if I take care of my investors, then I know I'll be good. All right, Lillie, the reason I love starting with you is because I'm going to be the bad guy here.
Okay.
Because all you guys are good people. And so I'm going to be the bad guy. And you're critical to this component because we have very successful professionals here. And I have seen, and I know Lillie, if you've seen it too, I have seen, and Mark, I think I'll use Mark's example. He doesn't know what I'm going to use, but Mark is the example for this. I got a call from Mark, and he said, listen, there's this woman who owns 2 brownstones in Brooklyn, and she has 2 daughters, and they're not very, what's the politically way of saying it? They are not able to manage.
Amicable.
Yeah, and they're not able to manage this kind of wealth. For those that don't know, in Brooklyn, brownstones are worth $2 or $3 million. The woman is in her 80s. She's pretty healthy, but she's going to be going into healthcare soon, and they need to liquidate these properties and put it into a trust. So, Lillian, in a situation where you have 2 daughters that are, I won't say that they're money hungry, greedy. I'll just say that they have a different perspective on what their mother should do with them. Their mother should do with the money, and the mother wants to leave a legacy for the grandchildren, but these adults want to put the money in their pocket. What would you advise in that case?
In that case, firstly, there's no requirement that parents leave anything to their children. Some of you may be relieved to learn that. So if your children have already started showing signs of an unwillingness or unable to manage the assets that you've left behind, I would say you are going to be a good candidate for a trust. Because there are some people who say, listen, my children are successful. My children have their head on their shoulders. I trust them. I'm simply going to leave this asset to them, and I trust that they will do the best that they can with it. And for the most part, that type of transfer or distribution can be handled with a relatively straightforward will. But if this 80-year-old woman or any person comes to me and says, listen, I have these assets, I want my family to get it, but I need there to be rules and parameters around the gift, because my concern is if I just gave it to them, they'll use it as collateral at a crap table in Vegas. I want to make sure that the brownstone is turned into rental property. I want to make sure that the vineyard property stays in the family. I want to make sure that the money from the life insurance policy is invested as best as possible. So if you are the person who says, I want to make this gift, but I want rules and parameters around it, I want people to reach a certain age, I want people to graduate, I want the money to skip my children and go to my grandchildren instead, I want a scholarship in my name, any type of rule or parameter, I would say you're a great candidate for a trust. Which trust? I don't know. We can sit down and have a one-on-one conversation on that. But the umbrella answer will typically be a trust in that situation, Thomas. So for that family, I would say, can mother, 80-year-old mother, name someone else who's the trustee, not her daughters whose palms are itching and they're salivating? Can the trustee be someone else who manages those two properties, whereby maybe income can be given to the daughters and to the grandchildren, but the daughters aren't directly responsible for making decisions because we're concerned about their decision-making capabilities. I tell persons, if you don't quite trust someone, the trust might be your solution.
Well, that's well said. I like that. Before we go to Dennis, I want to get a comment from Lisa, because you're in this situation now, Lisa, and you have the benefit of having two siblings that are highly educated, and I get the sense that you guys work as a team, and which doesn't mean, I mean, that just means three people with an opinion. And so I want to know if you wanted to add something to the conversation as someone who's going through that now.
Sure. I would say that I think the trust is an excellent idea, because even though you have, in our case, three people, we get along on almost everything or most big decisions. I think given the amount of assets my mom had in her estate, it would have been a smoother transition for us to know exactly what she wanted to do with things. So I think it's irregardless of how well the siblings get along. And I think there's other issues that just since my mom was the one who was thinking about the generational legacy and she was trusting us to do the right thing, I think it doesn't hurt, and it's actually a labor of love. Or it would have been a greater labor of love for her to say, well, this is what I really wanted. And you don't find yourself going back and trying to second guess and analyze what mom possibly wanted. So,
right.
So
and thank you for sharing that, Dr. Lisa. I'll add to that and say a lot of times we are trained to put our heads down, work hard, accumulate in whatever form that may come in. But there's rarely a discussion about distribution. And so think of estate planning as the distribution arm. Once you've climbed the mountain, you do have to come down. Once you've purchased the brownstones and you've earned the investments and you've sold the businesses, those assets need to be distributed to the other or the next generation. What is your distribution plan? How do you plan to move that asset off that mountain and to the next mountain? And we forget that part. We're just so excited to get to the top, and we don't have a plan to come down. And think of estate planning as your plan to distribute what you've built and accumulated.
So I want to, before I get to Dennis, I want to stay with Lillie for a minute and her co-counsel. I'm sorry, what's the name of your co-counsel?
His name is Hero with two
Hero.
R's.
Okay, Hero. I want to, before we get to Dennis, I want to bring up 2 points that I find very common. One is where the parents are extremely wealthy and alive, and they're very proud of that their son or daughter is getting married, and they want to arrange a trust so that if the marriage only lasts a couple of years, then the family's the legacy of assets is protected from someone that shouldn't necessarily get their hands on it. That's number one. And then number two is if you could talk about how you know, unfortunately, sometimes successful people become widows or are in their second marriage, and then there's multiple children from different marriages, and how critical it is not just to have a will, but to have a trust managed a little bit like, you know, for Lisa, it was pretty straightforward. That, you know, but how important it is to have a trust to handle those two occurrences. If you could speak on that.
Thank you. I'll handle the second one first. Yes, it is important to have some type of document, because what you want to say is this: in the event of a blended family, you all can decide we're treating all the biological and stepchildren identically. We're making no distinction. So if I have two daughters, two biological daughters and two stepsons, I'm treating them as if I have 4 children and each person gets a quarter. Families can sit down and agree to do that. Or you can say, listen, I'm going to take care of my biological children. You will take care of your biological children. And that's the way it's going to be. And it's not meant to dismiss the stepchildren. It's just a way to say, I've accumulated these assets. A lot of these assets were accumulated before we even got together. I'd like to keep it with my biological children. You can make whatever arrangement you want, Thomas, as long as it is in writing and it's not counter to state law. There's some little public policy rules here and there that you have to abide by. But outside of that, you can absolutely create a trust that allows you to do that, because otherwise you run into situations where I always call them handshake agreements, or I've literally had people say, but my mom or my stepdad told me this. Look, I got the text message to prove it. And I have to tell them, nobody's worried about that text message. No, nobody's worried about that text message you have. Where's the legal document? So you can have a lot of flexibility, feel empowered to plan the way that you want to plan, whether it's with a blended family or not a blended family. And as far as scenario number one, which is I'm concerned about my assets potentially going to my ex-in-laws, you solve that by saying, I'm leaving all of my assets to my child via trust. And there's going to be a clause in that trust that says, if my child has any creditor issues or is being sued, then we're going to pause the distributions until that suit or that creditor issue is resolved. And we place divorce in the category of creditors. So once the divorce is over, then the gifts from the trust can resume, but we can put these measures whereby we're protecting the assets and keeping it in our lineage. And then secondly, I'm a big proponent of prenups. You don't have to be a billionaire to get a prenup. And in fact, I have clients who say in their trusts, I'm encouraging my children to get their own prenups in order for them to receive their inheritance. So if you even want to take it that far, Thomas, that's an option as well.
Very good, very good. Just a quick question, Lillian. When you said there were certain public policy matters, were you referring to the fact that you cannot disinherit your wife or husband?
Yes, that's one of them. You can't disinherit your spouse. Every state has a minimum that you need to leave your spouse unless your spouse agrees in writing to essentially be disinherited. That's number one. Another public policy is sometimes you'll see people go a little too far and put in writing in their trust, I'm only giving you this money if you happen to marry a person from this ethnic group. You can't really, you gotta relax, mom. You can't really do that. You might have to talk about that outside of the trust, but an attorney is not going to draft. You get your inheritance only if you marry someone from this ethnic group, because that's another, that also runs counter to public policy.
Very good, very good. Dennis, my man. So as you know, I'm a big real estate guy. And I have had conversations with a number of professionals and about when they invest with me. And I don't believe they should put all their money in real estate. I know from a real estate person, that might be shocking to hear because our attitude is we want all your money. I believe in a balanced investment approach. And so I think the equity securities are an important component of that. Now, the reason I'm presenting this to you is because what I find is that there's more, with the most educated Black professionals, particularly the ones that are not in finance, there's a stronger comfort level with real estate. If you could take a moment to talk about, how they need to approach investing in the stock market and why it's critical, and how you can help smooth that transition. Because I really think that we need to have a balanced approach to investing.
Yeah. Thank you, Thomas, for that. And, you mentioning real estate, let me just start there because that's my family passed real estate on to me and our family. And historically, people from Black backgrounds, that was what defined wealth, primarily was real estate. And you're 100% right on that. And other than real estate, in the years that I've been doing this, most Black families, I'm dealing with clients of first generational wealth that they created themselves, helping them create it. Whereas when I'm dealing with my Caucasian families, I'm talking about generational wealth, 3 to 4 to 5 generations of money that I'm handling. So it's a completely different conversation. And what I've learned early on when I started investing in 1987 is we've got to know more than just real estate. We have to expand our horizons. And we've been pretty much as a Black entity, risk averse outside.
Wait, I'm sorry. Let me interrupt you for a minute. I'm sorry. Marcus, could you take the flyer off the air? Because I think the way Zoom works, everybody's face might be blocked if it's up there. So take it off. And yes, thank you. All right, go ahead, Dennis. I'm sorry.
Right. So we've been risk averse, and we need to start taking a dip into how wealth is created outside of real estate. And I learned early on that investing in equities was pretty much the easiest way to do it with a structured process. And I've also learned that there are no shortcuts. I talk to people who want me to give them the latest stock tip, right? What's the next NVIDIA? I just want to give you, $10,000 and just put it, well, I can do that. I'm a stockbroker. I can actually do that. And if you direct me to do it, if I choose to work with you, then we can do that. But that's not really going to get you where you need to go for the long term. There is no magic. There are no shortcuts. And in the chat, I put my website there. You will see that I really believe, and I learned early on when I first started investing, you have to pay yourself first. And I tell people everything else is just wealth transfer. I asked them the question, so when do you get paid? Oh, I get paid the first of the month. Okay, so how much of it do you keep? Well, it goes here, here, here. I said, so really, you have to understand that you're not going to get paid by these entities that give you a paycheck. You get paid when you pay yourself first. When you take a part of that, put it away, then you've paid yourself, then you pay everybody else after that. And it's that philosophical mindset that when you're dealing with first generational wealth entities like most Black families, you have to get that and stress that. And then that opens up their mindset as to, okay, where is your wealth? It's usually in some form of real estate that someone left them. And so then I explained, well, good, you understand the concept of generational wealth, right? Through real estate. Now let's talk about it in another way, through equities. And so, you start off with the basic dollar cost averaging, right? And you go through that and you explain to them what that is and how it works. And at that point,
Wait, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Could you explain dollar cost average, please?
Right. You, on a regular basis, let's say on a monthly basis or whenever you get paid, you take a set amount of money, which is pretty much an equal amount, and you put that away into let's say a S&P 500, because that's pretty popular. That has a beta of 1. And over the course of time, the price you pay.
I'm sorry. What's an S&P 500?
Standard & Poor 500 index. Let's say you put it into an index fund.
Okay. By the way, I know the answer to this. I'm asking it because people are going to be watching this, and I want them to
Thank you. Right.
I'm just trying to slow you down, Dennis, because you.
So
go ahead.
So you put that set amount into I would say like a S&P 500, Standard & Poor 500 fund, which is a beta of 1, which means that the risk is, average risk. And over the course of time, the price you paid for those shares are less, because when the market goes down and people are afraid and wanting to sell, when stocks go on sale, you are buying more shares because the price is low, you're buying them on sale. And then when the market goes back up, it's worth more than if you had paid for it all at one time. Okay.
So if an individual was to contribute $1,000 a month to this index fund, based on the cost average, the ups and downs, they would get different amounts of the stocks, but they have to look at it as I'm putting $1,000 in, and then at the end, you'll see a better opportunity for appreciation.
Absolutely, because you are buying more when they're on sale, and I have to get clients past the mindset that, oh, the market's down, I need to sell. No, that's when you need to buy more, when they are on sale. Okay, buy low, sell high. It sounds very basic, but it kind of goes against human nature.
So it's like running into the fire, running into the house when the house is on fire.
Exactly. And
right.
And those who have learned that and those who can understand and get comfortable with that discipline are the ones who do the best long term. Right. And so I get them to understand that. And so that's on the accumulation piece. And I have to say that, Lillie, I 100% agree with what you said about the distribution phase, because we get them to the point to where you've done this for all these decades, all this time. And one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make is they do it right up until they get to retirement. And then now what do I do next? It's sort of like the dog caught the car. What do I do with it now? Okay. And one mistake can ruin decades. And I've seen it happen. Decades of investing. And so I help them understand that, okay, now we're at a real critical point. You've done this for all these years. Now it's time to figure out what it is you want. I had a conversation today with a client who's an engineer who came in, and he's 57 years old. He's been with the civil service for 37 years. He's got a nice amount saved up. He's done. And it's like, what do I do now? Well, we had that discussion, and it's more than just, how do you want to retire? That is part of it. But then we have to go into the Social Security discussion and explaining, how that can help you. And that's part of your portfolio. We have to talk about Medicare, because the healthcare cost is going to be one of your biggest expenses in retirement. So we have to do a comprehensive approach with all of these factors. And so that's what I do when I help people with retirement planning and on the wealth management piece of it. It all starts to come together at that distribution phase. I'll tell one quick story. I had a really good close friend of mine who worked for Xerox as an executive for 40 years. And he called me when he was getting ready to retire to say, hey, Dennis, what should I do? He had about $4 million. And I said, well, you know, you can do several things with it, but the mistake I made was assuming that because he was an executive, that he knew a lot more about what to do with that $4 million. What he did with it was tragic. He annuitized all of it within the Xerox plan, within the employer plan, which was and he died 2 years later and did not do a 10-year certain, okay? Didn't do anything. The insurance company won. And I learned from that, and this was in 2017, that not to assume that just because a person is educated and is a high achiever in one area, that they need me more than I think they need me. And I learned a lesson from that to, like Thomas said, take a step back, Dennis, slow down, explain what this is, take baby steps. It's okay. People don't think that, they won't think that I'm talking down to them, because that was a concern that I had. When you deal with people of certain levels, you don't want to feel as if you're talking down to them. Well, I've learned, take them back, start from the beginning, go step by step, and get them through those vulnerable times, and explain to them about how markets go up and markets go down. And like I said earlier, you don't want to run when markets are down, because that's when equities are on sale. And then if I like them enough, I'll show them my portfolio, and over the course of time, what can happen. And when they see that I've done it myself, that's when, a lot of the angst, really for real, it's sort of like the first time they've actually seen a person of color be disciplined over the course of several decades. And I point out those, I started in 1987 in February. We had the first mini crash in October. I didn't know any better. I just kept doing my $300 because that's what the advisor told me to do. And then I learned from that, when we got to the big crash in 08, 09, that had everybody running for the hills, stayed disciplined. And those who stayed disciplined did a lot better than those who cut and ran.
Very good, very good. Before I go to Robin, so I'm gonna use you for a minute I know Robin's like, what did I do? I want to feed off something that Dennis said, and this is for the listeners. When you're at this level this is in reference to the service providers, and I really liked what you said, Dennis. I don't know if you knew what you said, but I want to highlight it because I think people need to understand this. When you're at the level that Mark and Lillian and Dennis is at, they choose who they work with. Like, this is not like walking into a department store, a cashier, and saying, here, run up my food. I'm pretty sure they've rejected just as many clients as they've accepted. And so look at Lillian. Lillian's like, boy, Thomas, don't let me tell you. And so when you're at this level, dealing with this level of personal finance, you have to come correct to these service providers, because I'll just leave it as that they are not the hired help. And that's something to keep in mind. Robin, the reason I'm bringing you up is because of past conversations that we've had. You're in DC, and we've talked about how you've seen your neighborhood change, and how the value, DC's gone. Like Harlem and DC, it's gone. We we could all be wealthy if we've invested in these communities 20 years ago in a balanced, patient approach like Dennis was talking about. And so if you could just take a minute and tell me what you saw when you first came to DC and what there is now. And before you start that, hey, Willie, I like the socks, man. Your phone flipped over and I got to look at the socks. Nice color. But go ahead, Robin.
All right, first of all, I was born and raised in DC, so I didn't come to DC, but
my apologies.
I born and raised, and I was born in the northwest side of DC, just below the Flowers and Trees. For those of you who know DC, Upper DC is named for flowers and trees, and then you go down to another section, and I was born in that area. People used to call it the Gold Coast area of Northwest Washington. At any rate, when I went to medical school, got married and everything, I had to move to another side of DC, somewhere I could afford to live, because the Gold Coast area had become unaffordable for a poor medical student who was just struggling for a place to live. So I moved into Washington, Northeast Washington. And this particular neighborhood was pretty rundown. They had just finished cleaning out some of the projects from some of the drug activity that was there. And so I moved into that neighborhood, and the home values were very, very low. But of course, they didn't stay that way long. Lo and behold, people started coming in and buying up the property and fixing it up and flipping it. And slowly but surely, the prices of housing in my neighborhood have skyrocketed. The house I live in right now is up the street from a little townhome that I bought. My husband and I bought when we first got married in '88. And we lived there about 9 years or so, and our son was growing up, and we decided we wanted to move to a larger home. And initially, because I couldn't afford anything in DC, and the neighborhood was, it was getting better, but it wasn't quite what I wanted. We were going to move out. But these houses that were being built, my father had an architect friend who called him up and said, if you know anybody who wants to buy a house in DC, you need to buy this. And that was in 1997. And at that time, I just went up out of curiosity to take a look at it. And we bought the house. We bought one of the larger houses on the development that was actually being made. And with time, I've lived in this house a little over 20 years now, and it has more than quadrupled in terms of its price. Now, all the fixed houses in the neighborhood that were starting to run down have been bought up by white people who have then fixed them up, flipped them, and then sold them for upwards of $800,000 to well over $1 million. And so the neighborhood has just been incredible. And one of the things I remember telling you, Thomas, when I first met you, is that I'm kind of sort of sick of seeing these white people come into the neighborhood, take one of these rundown houses, then turn around and fix them, flip them, and then sell them for all of this fantastic money. And why aren't we doing that? Is what I said to you. So I think that's the story you really wanted me to tell. And that now the neighborhood is such that I would have to think twice, 3 times about whether or not I would be able to afford, if I were in the day 20, 30 years ago, when I was first starting out and raising my son and trying to get out from under the medical loans, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not sure I would be able to afford my house today. I had a friend recently who was also a physician move in around the corner. I was kind of surprised when he told me he was moving in around the corner, and he's actually moving in with a roommate. They are splitting the cost of the house because it's almost $1 million, and they're both physicians. And I'm like, what? And they're splitting the cost of the house. They are people who actually worked for the government as physicians for a number of years. So they too did not become or start out to become wealthy physicians. And so this is how they're having to do it. To buy a house in my neighborhood is actually split the house. and half pays half the mortgage, the other half pays the other.
Very
So
good. Yeah,
it's
very
happening
good.
in Northeast Washington, no longer a rundown neighborhood. It was a good choice on my part, in terms of the amount of equity I have in this home right now, and it was a good move. So
Very good. Yeah,
watching what's happening. Yeah, go ahead.
The reason I wanted to highlight your story is because our fund is, we invest exclusively between DC and Boston. And so we haven't found any deals in DC because of just what Dr. Jenkins, see how I said that, Dr. Jenkins, instead of saying Robin? Based on what you said, we haven't found a deal that we thought would work for us. But we believe in Baltimore, we believe in Philadelphia, and we think that there are some great opportunities there. One of the frustrations that I have with, not the service providers, you doctors, is I refer to you guys as the bourgeois Negroes, is that, not the four on this panel, of course, but some of you are like, do people live in those neighborhoods? Are they going to pay rent? And I'm like, listen, I don't need you to move in and to live there. I just need you to let your money hang out there so that you can become more wealthy. Like, you don't have to live there. Just we can take attendance with your money being invested in that community, and you will see that those white folks, and Robin, I want to thank you for eloquently, because Matthew, I don't know if Matthew's on this call. Matthew's always telling me, no, Thomas, you can't be so controversial. But the white people that are invested in Black neighborhoods, they're not in there because they love us. They're in there because they're becoming wealthy. And our community and our professionals can too become more wealthy by investing in these communities. So if you're listening to this YouTube video, you too become wealthy. But I would love for you to invest with us or invest directly into those neighborhoods if you have the expertise. But please invest in these up and coming neighborhoods over the long term. They will be the next DC. They will be the next Harlem, New York. Before we're going to be ending in like 7 minutes. I want to, before we have the doctors say their last comments, I want to go to Mark. Mark, wow, we've had conversations about insurance nightmares and how challenging it is to get our folks to understand that they need to be insured. That if you look at the Rockefellers, if you look at wealthy families, they use insurance for wealth purposes. If you had to convince somebody that's saying to you, oh my God, I don't want to get insurance because I don't want to die, or I don't want my kids to be excited about my death, could you talk a little bit about, because I'll just say this, when my ex-wife and I got married and we decided to have children, the first thing we did was get an insurance policy, because I did not want her or I to be a single parent because one of us got hit by a truck and now we have to raise this child by ourselves without the financial wherewithal. Could you just comment based on your expertise on the importance of insurance? Because I really want the viewers to nail this.
Yeah, well, after so many years of doing this, I'm finding that the broader community is being more acceptable about buying life insurance. You see in social media now, virtual banking, and people talking about how they can use life insurance as a bank. So that aspect does exist, but from a pure point of view about risk management, life insurance is hedging a risk. It's just like a risk that you would hedge for your property. Difference is that you're dealing with a human capital. And when I dealt with physicians who right out of medical school, and they've gone from $30,000, $40,000 a year to $200,000 a year with a work history of 30 years. If you multiply that, You multiply 200,000 times 10 years, that's 2 million. Times 20 years, that's 4 million. Times 30 years, that's 6 million. So when you start to help people to understand that you're worth a lot more than you really believe, people tend to respond to using life insurance as a mechanism to protect that human capital. Now, many people think about life insurance in a negative way because for many years, you had debit insurance people come around and take money for life insurance, and when that person died, a nominal amount was paid out. But it's a different structure right now. Life insurance is a useful tool, not simply for passing
Wait,
on
I'm
wealth.
sorry. I have to interrupt you there. I disagree with you. I don't believe it's a useful tool. I think it is one of the legs to the chair that you will sit on. It is critical for you to have life insurance. A useful tool would be like if I just need a screwdriver that's in the kitchen drawer. I think insurance and the work that you do is critical to the economic, and I'm a real estate person and I'm promoting life insurance. That's how much I believe it being critical. So
absolutely. Thank you for that statement. It is critical. It is absolutely critical. And most people do have some life insurance. Where I encounter some resistance is when I start telling people about buying $3 million, $5 million, $10 million worth of insurance. Now we're starting to talk about using it inside of a trust so that it doesn't create an estate problem for you. But absolutely, life insurance is a critical component of your planning. And like Dennis talks about, yes, everyone should be investing. And everyone should be essentially using life insurance to make sure that they protected their human capital. And over years of building financial capital, you start to protect those assets that you build that will someday be transferred in some kind of legacy fashion.
hold on a second.
By the way, I should make it.
Wait, Mark, hold on a second. Say, Lillian, I want you to say goodbye so that your little one can run off. Are you able to just say a quick goodbye, Lillian?
Yes, everyone. Good evening. I'm so sorry I have to run. He is looking at me like, you're trying it, lady. I gave you an hour and a half. Let's go. So it was so nice to meet all of you. Thomas, thank you so much for the invitation. I look forward to hearing from anyone who has any questions, comments, or concerns. Thank you so much.
And Lillie, I'm glad that you know who the general partner is in your firm. And as the associate, I'm glad you're doing your duty.
I do what he tells me to do at this point.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Take care, Lillie.
All right, Mark, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
So to continue, most people don't realize that life insurance is a tax-free distribution. Yes. So when the money is paid out to your heirs, to your charity, to your pet, it goes tax-free to that party. And so if done correctly, this asset could lead to a stream of income for you. So now you're leaving an asset to an heir, but while you're living, you have a distribution of income that's tax-free. So many of you have spent years working, and I find that many of my folks who end up buying insurance, they're not buying it when they're 20s and 30s. They're buying it when they're in their 50s, 60s, and even older. I just had a couple, a family. The parents have 31 units, and it's now inside of a trust, and it's now in the hands of the trustees, which are the son and daughter. And the mother is asking for the trust to buy insurance on her and her husband. A little late, but That's the consequence of recognizing that life insurance can multiply your value far, far faster than traditional investments.
Right, because death and taxes.
Death is inevitable. No, death is certain.
Yeah.
Nobody gets out alive. So
And you don't get to take
ultimately-
anything with you. And you don't get to take anything with you.
No.
All
Ultimately,
right, Mark.
ultimately, thank you. Ultimately, I hope that most folks don't treat life insurance like a pariah. Treat it like an asset that it is. And utilize it, use it. Thank you.
Very good. Very good, Mark. I want to swing to our doctors for their last word. So we'll go with Janet, because I see your glasses. So take a minute to say parting thoughts.
What I want to say is that there was a wealth of information on this call tonight. And hopefully whoever was listening out there will really leverage the people that are here and can really help them build their own wealth, but also work collaboratively across this group. So thank you, Thomas, for all that you've done and continue to do. And I know this is going to be really big.
Thank you. Natasha?
Ditto. I want to say the same. Three things stand out for me. Real estate. For me, it was trying to purchase my own property that I live in so that I could start my path. And now I feel the need to start looking at some of the other vehicles that I've heard about, the annuities and the life insurance. Those are two, you grow up and you hear certain things, families saying this or that about one or the other. And so, yeah, it's some food for thought. I think, and I appreciate the discussion. I took away some good points, and thanks for the opportunity.
Very good. Lisa?
I agree with everything that was discussed. There was so much wisdom here. I think the message I took away was the importance of the dollar cost averaging. And if you can set it up so it's automatic, that way you don't even have to think about it. But there's also the importance of doing your homework, because one of the things is, as physicians, we know how hard we work to pass our boards, study this, go through residency, put all those years of education in what we do so we can do it really well. And I remember one of my mentors once told me, or I've actually heard it from several non-medical people, they said, well, doctors spend all the time they spent learning how to be a great doctor, learning about real estate investments or whatever else that's going on around them. They would be great, but we don't always have the time to do that, even though we would love to be able to maybe take some of that on. And I think there's just groups like this that can put you in touch with people who can fill in those gaps so you don't have to do all the work. So I just want to thank you for that.
Very good, very good. Yeah, it's interesting for our listeners, the largest percentage of investors that I have are actually Black doctors. They make up the largest group. It's interesting. I think next year I've started the planning that we're going to be starting the Black the Black Doctor Real Estate Fund, because I've started, I'm handling so many investment capital from Black doctors that I'm going to create a fund just for them. And then maybe I'll do one for Black lawyers. Okay, Willie, I first let me compliment you on your software. Very good, very good. If you would share with us any parting thoughts.
Well, I'm not sure how my my socks ended up. I didn't see my screen flip, but I do wear socks. I'm appreciative of being on the call. One of the things in terms of talking about investment, and I appreciate your reassuring people that you're very careful with their money, but you can't reassure people away from the notion that there's risk involved with investing. And I think you want people to be sober in their decisions that they're making. So just to add a bit of precision with what I was saying about uh, uh, you, if you are not willing to take risk, you're not willing to grow in advance. Okay, when I consent people for the OR to talk about a procedure, everybody wants to focus on the benefits, but nobody wants to talk about the risk. And you're not truly informed unless I talk to you about the risk. Making reference to risk in the context of recruiting people to have a community mindedness about investing is to preempt the notion that oftentimes, because we don't trust and believe each other, we often demand more reassurance and than we request from somebody else, right? That the people who question my competency as a physician most have not been white people. It's been people who look like me. So what I wanted to convey to people is that with the community mindedness of this investment, as well as making money, is, to me, it makes it worth the risk. So I trust you 100. One of the things I shared with you before is when I look at, I have investments with other folk that don't have this focus. And I've shared with you, when I look at what you do and what they do, there's no difference other than that you go to the nth degree to reassure me and the rest of us that you're being extra careful. And I think it's unfortunate that you have to go to that degree, but you have to do. So my talking about risk is to kind of say, okay, you can't get rid of risk, but you can right size it. And I say that this is worth the risk. So I'm grateful to be a part of this, and I hope other people will take in all of the resources that you've availed on this call, as well as understanding that everybody wants to catch. You got to catch the plane before it takes off. You can't get on the plane at 30,000 feet. And with that, I'll quit. Thanks.
Thank you. Robin?
And so once again, thank you for having me here. And I really love what Willie said here, because in terms of the issue of risk, all investment is risk, and some of it's greater than others. Just watching the fund over the last 3 years, I am really confident, as Willie said, that you, Thomas, have really care about our money, and you want it to make money for us. And that's as much as anyone can ask. If you're going to invest and understand investment is risk, put some of it in your community, put some of it in the Black community. We have to learn how to take care of one another. And so I'll just keep it that brief and say, have a good evening, everyone.
Wow, thank you so much. Let me get the last words from our two professionals. 30 seconds, please. Dennis, you can go, and then Mark, you'll have the last word.
I learned a lot just by listening to you all tonight. So thank you for your participation here. And we have to maintain this sense of community, because we are all we have, really, at the end of the day. And if we don't, who will? And if we don't do it now, then when? So Thomas, thank you for your leadership. Thank you all for being here tonight. Feel free to please reach out to me with any questions that you may have, financial or otherwise. I'm here. This is not just my profession, this is my ministry. And I'm here to share it with anyone who needs it. So thank you.
Mark?
Thank you, Thomas. Like everyone else, they've met you through social. I've known you directly and honest, and you've been very careful about what you've done, but at the same time, very, very broad-minded about what you want to accomplish. The people here, the doctors, deserve to know that you're doing your very best. Even when others said, stay away from Thomas, I still came along. We want to see this grow. We want this to duplicate. We want this to multiply so that the fund will grow larger and we can do more things. And I'm here to support you in this endeavor. Thank you. Let's do this again.
I want to bring up some closing thoughts. One is risk, and one is something that Mark just said, which I added to my list for my closing thoughts. I'll do his first. So I don't have the credentials that this august group of individuals have. I don't have a law degree. I don't have a medical degree. I don't have a CPA. And Willie was correct. I have gotten more pushback from people that look like us for two reasons. One is, and you know, I'm not sensitive over the competence part because I can prove that. And there's, you know, that I just need time, and you know, and so I'm very confident about that. But Mark, you bring up something very enlightening when you said you know, and you're not the only one. Many people have been told stay away from Thomas. And what's interesting is that there's somebody on this panel, Michael, and he told me, he said, you know, Thomas, I Googled you, and you know, white people don't like you very much, and but there's nothing about financial fraud or you ripping off your clients or anything like that. And that's why I chose to roll with you, to run with you. And so the number one criticism that I've gotten over the years is that I'm too pro-Black. That, oh my God, did you actually say you don't take money from white people for your fund? No, we don't take money from white people for our fund. Oh my God, you only invest with Black real estate entrepreneurs? Yes, we only invest with Black people. And this is coming from Black people who run scared that this may offend the white people in their circles. And then I talk to white people, particularly white people in real estate, and they tell me, they're like, oh, how come your community is not organized? How come you people are not owning the real estate in your community? Why do you allow us to come and take over your neighborhoods? I mean, we'll be happy to do it, but don't expect us to protect you. We're here for the best interests of our community. And you know, I apologize. They say to me, I'm Thomas, I apologize if that's offensive, but that's capitalism and that's the way America works. And so, yes, I have been criticized for being pro-Black, and I'm 55 years old. And when I die, they're going to write on my tomb, here lies Thomas Lopez-Pierre, who raised X amount of dollars in profits for his Black investors, who created X amount of jobs for the Black community, and he was a good father and a good ex-husband, and that's what I wanted to say on my tombstone. Now, with regard to risk, and I thank you again for that, Will, is that our business model is not one where we're buying a property and there's tenants in there. I'll say it another way. If you said to me, Thomas, there's a property for sale, it has 10 units, it has all doctors in it. They have the best credit score, and they pay their rent 2 days before the deadline. I would never invest in that property. That is not the property I'm interested in investing in. Why? Because that profit has been sucked out of that building. There's no opportunity for growth there. I want to invest in vacant lots, in abandoned buildings. I want to go into Baltimore where there are no roofs on a lot of the properties. They don't have roofs. You know, they have walls barely. I want to invest in entrepreneurs that are rebuilding those communities, not just because I'm some do-gooder, but because that's where the opportunity for appreciation is. My job is to, and I want to say that Thomas Lopez-Pierre creates wealth for Black people. That's what I want them to say, that he's not interested in serving the needs of other people. He is not angry with them. He's not interested in fighting with them, but he is committed to the economic empowerment of Black people. And so I want to thank you guys for joining tonight's panel. I hope our viewers will consider reaching out to me. Please visit blackrealestateforum.com, blackrealestateforum.com. I'm committed to building wealth and creating jobs for Black people. I am unapologetically proud of the economic empowerment opportunities for Black people in America. And I want to make capitalism real for our community. And if we come together and we work together and we end this separation of the social classes, and there's a reason why tonight I did doctors, because there's this in this community, it's like, it's that book, you know that book, Our Kind of People? It's that belief that our kind of people, hey, Bobby, do me a favor. Marcus, let Bobby Jones in on the call. I want to see his face. Is that book, Our Kind of People, which talks about the Black elite. There's nothing wrong with having good education and like the finer things, but your responsibility is to help empower your community. You were not on the field when the dogs were biting the people that were fighting for the right to vote. You were not at Harvard when they did not let us in. You were not in the medical schools when they wouldn't even let a Black person in the medical school. I'm glad that you're in these positions now, but you have a moral and ethical and a selfish responsibility to invest in our communities. Not because of charity. I'm not interested in charity. I'm interested in the wealth that has been created in Black neighborhoods and that I see going to the hands of other people. And I am building with a team of people, our investors. Let me tell you, when I say I'm the dumbest person in the room, I am. Our investors are former head of the Atlanta office of the Securities and Exchange Commission, former chief credit officer for Fannie Mae. We have a host of corporate lawyers. Yes, we have a whole bunch of medical doctors, but we got CPAs and MBAs and real estate professionals and plumbers and electricians. And so I just wanted to share that with you, that we are a team and we have an audit committee, we have an investment committee. I do not make decisions in a vacuum. And I want to thank the professionals for joining us tonight. And I want to thank you for watching. Please reach out to me. Marcus, could you come onto the screen so we can see your face? Everybody, this is my son, Marcus. He is the deputy fund manager. He's 18 years old. His plan is to be a securities lawyer. He's a rising freshman, going to be a sophomore this September. And I'm very proud of him and his mother. I have the best ex-wife that a man could ask for. She's doing a great job at raising my two daughters that are graduating this week from middle school. And they are going to be strong, powerful women. I hope not too powerful that they don't get married, but they're going to be strong, powerful women. And, my son and my daughters are my legacy, and they're the reason I work so hard, and I love them all. I want to thank you all for joining me. You guys are inspirational for me. You guys inspire me to do the work that I do. And I look forward to having a great end of the year. And let's make 2025, when it comes, even a better year for the fund. Please have a great night. And I love you all. Thank you.
Wonderful. Good night, folks. Good night.
Okay, good night.